And the average response was 3 or 4, maybe 5 before you're just done. Because at some point, people want to have time for themselves, time for their family, things like that. And I asked them, how many hours does it take to close a buyer? And the average response was 30, but a lot of them never close. And so then I was like, okay, well, how many listings can you manage at once? And they said 30, 40, like as many as you can give me, I'll manage. And I asked them, okay, said, how many hours do you spend? Not including the time to go find the listing. How many hours do you spend working a listing? And the average response was, I don't know, 8, 10, 12. Now, if you like doing broker tours and open houses, then that's going to go up. But studies have shown those don't work. Those are kind of pointless. Agents still do them to generate leads and to keep their clients happy. But I mean, realistically, if the agent knew they would never generate a lead from an open house, they wouldn't do an open house. The only reason agents do them, a lot of them, from what they told me, is, well, I'm charging a really high fee, so my client expects it because I tell them that it works, even though we know it doesn't. Statistically, they sell between 1% and 2% of houses. So feel free to ask AI, what's the odds of selling a house from an open house? I mean, it's better than winning the $1.8 billion Powerball that just happened, but it ain't much better. So anyways, the question is, if you're spending, let's assume you get 3% on every buyer you work, which is ambitious because nobody does. But let's assume you get a 3% commission on every buyer you work. And let's assume that you're going to close all of them in 30 hours, which is the average. And let's be honest, by the time you hop in your car, you schedule the appointment, you hop in your car, you drive somewhere, you show them a house, all those things, you drive back home, you're probably an hour or two invested in each house you show. That's not including inspections. That's not including all these other things. So let's assume you close every buyer you meet, and let's assume they're the average of 3% in 30 hours of work. Guess what that breaks down to? That's 0.1% per hour to work a buyer. But that buyer doesn't scale. Like, you're not going to get to put a sign in the ground by working with a buyer. You're not going to get to market yourself and farm a neighborhood with a buyer. You're going to get to drive around and spend some gas money. You might get to buy them lunch and dinner, but you're not going to get to, list a bunch of houses because you got that buyer. So you're making 0.1% per hour working that buyer, assuming you charge 3%, that buyer that's less likely to close. So for us, we're charging 1% to list homes, which everybody thinks it's crazy. But you work 10 hours listing that home and you're making the same 0.1% per hour. But here's the interesting part. That listing, they might go buy a house. That listing might do a lot of things. That listing might bring you a buyer that's unrepresented that needs to sell a house in order to buy a house. Now you've turned one listing into 3 transactions. I've turned a listing into 4 or 5 transactions sometimes. I mean, I've met people who are investors who are selling tons of homes, and that one listing turned into so much business, it's ridiculous. I wind up being their agent that they used to sell their $1 million home because I did such a good job selling all their $200,000 investment properties. The point is, listings are opportunity builders. Listings are just opportunities. That's what they are. Whereas buyers are just time sinks. Now, we work with buyers. I'm not saying we don't, but what I'm saying is, in the time that it would take for an agent to keep a Zillow buyer happy, somebody that just clicked talk to an agent, and let's be honest, they're probably not loyal because everybody knows a handful of real estate agents nowadays. So in the time that you're spending trying to keep that person happy, you could have gone and listed multiple houses at the fee we charge, 1%. And before you turn your nose up at that, understand that you're probably making less money per hour working a buyer at 3% than we make working a listing at 1%. But that buyer's calling you saying, hey, I understand, your kid's got a little league game, but you need to come show me this house. Meanwhile, I've got people who manage 20, 30, 40 active listings. And so at the end of the day, if you really think about it practically, to make the same amount of money hourly, working a buyer at 3%, you should charge 1% to list a house. That's before you figure in the fact that listing could go buy a house. and lots of other good things can happen. That's before you consider the fact that those listings, you can stack up 20, 30, 40 of them. I have agents that do. And yet, why are we paying Zillow for buyer leads? Why is that a reasonable strategy?